I was eagerly waiting to see my son walk down the aisle on his wedding day. Suddenly, our family driver pushed me into the trunk of his car, covering me with a blanket. "What the hell are you doing?" I hissed. He whispered urgently, "Hide in here. There's something you need to see, trust me." Against every instinct, I did. What I witnessed through that crack in the trunk left me paralyzed with horror. Thank you so much for being here. I want to hear from you. Comment below and tell me, where are you listening from right now? Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. And if you know someone who needs this story, share it with them. One more thing, this narrative includes some creative elements added for storytelling and teaching purposes. Any resemblance to real people or locations is purely by chance. However, the lessons within those are very real, and I hope they speak to your heart. The morning of my son's wedding, I stood in my bedroom staring at a dress I'd picked out 3 months ago. Navy blue, elegant, the kind of thing a mother wears when she's proud. I should have been excited, crying happy tears, calling friends to say, "Can you believe my Blake is getting married?" But I wasn't. Instead, I stood with my hand pressed against my chest, feeling my heartbeat thud too fast, too loud. Something felt wrong. I couldn't name it, but it sat in my stomach like a stone, heavy, cold, unwelcome. Bernard would have known what to do. My husband had been gone for 3 years, but I still caught myself thinking that way, wishing he were here, wishing I could turn to him and say, "Do you feel it too?" But Bernard wasn't here. And Blake, my sweet, trusting Blake, was downstairs getting ready to marry Natasha Quinn. Beautiful, polished, said all the right things. And yet, I shook my head, pushed the thought away, and reached for my earrings. "Stop it, Margot, you're being paranoid." I was fastening the second earring when I heard gravel crunch outside. Frederick's car. Early. 7:30. We weren't supposed to leave for another 20 minutes. I grabbed my purse and headed downstairs. When I stepped outside, the morning air hit me warm, sweet, the kind of spring day that made you believe in new beginnings. But Frederick's face told a different story. He stood beside the black sedan, hands clenched, jaw tight. Frederick Palmer had worked for our family for 15 years. He'd driven Bernard to his last meeting. He'd driven me to the hospital the night Bernard died. Frederick didn't panic, ever. But right now, he looked like a man barely holding himself together. "Mrs. Hayes," he said, voice low and urgent, "you need to hide, right now." I froze halfway down the driveway. "What?" "Please." He stepped closer. Fear flickered in his eyes. "Get in the back seat. Cover yourself with a blanket. Don't make a sound." "Frederick, what are you—" "Mrs. Hayes." His voice cracked. "I made a promise to Mr. Bernard. I promised I'd look after you and Blake. Right now, I'm asking you to trust me. Please." Bernard's name hit me like a punch. Frederick never invoked Bernard's memory lightly. I looked toward the house. Blake would be coming out any second, smiling, happy, ready to marry the woman he loved. The woman he thinks he loves. "Frederick," I whispered, "what did you find out?" His throat worked. "Not here. Not now, but you need to hear something before Blake walks down that aisle, and he can't know you're listening." My hands shook. "What are you talking about?" "Please." Frederick opened the back door. The interior smelled like leather and lavender. "Get in, I'll explain, but we're running out of time." I stared at that open door, at the blanket folded on the seat, at Frederick's face, this man who'd been family for 15 years, who'd never lied to me, who'd held my hand at Bernard's funeral. From inside, I heard Blake's voice, laughing. I climbed into the back seat. The dress caught on the door frame. I bunched it up, pressed it down, folded myself into a space that suddenly felt too small. Frederick handed me the blanket, soft, dark, heavy. "Cover yourself completely," he whispered. "He can't see you." I pulled the blanket over my head. The world went dim. I could hear my own breathing, loud and fast. My heart hammered. The door closed softly, and then I heard him. "Blake. Ready to go, Fred." His voice was bright, excited. "Yes, sir," Frederick replied, perfectly calm. "Right on schedule." The passenger door opened. The seat shifted as Blake slid in. His cologne filled the car, sharp and clean, the same scent Bernard used to wear. "Man," Blake laughed. "I can't believe I'm doing this, getting married." "It's a big day, Mr. Blake." "The biggest." Blake's voice softened. "I just wish Dad were here. He'd probably have some joke about me finally settling down. My throat tightened. I pressed my hand over my mouth. "Your father would be very proud," Frederick said quietly. The engine started. The car began to move. And there I was, dressed for my son's wedding, hiding under a blanket, listening to Blake's happy voice, and wondering what truth I was about to discover. He has no idea his world is about to shatter, and neither do I. The car had been moving for maybe 10 minutes when Blake's phone rang. I couldn't see anything from under the blanket, just darkness, and the faint glow of morning light bleeding through the fabric. But I could hear everything. The hum of the engine, the soft rustle of Blake shifting in his seat, the sharp buzz of his phone vibrating against the dashboard. "It's Natasha," Blake said, and I heard the smile in his voice. "Hey, babe, I'm on my way to the church." He must have put her on speaker because suddenly her voice filled the car, smooth, sweet, perfectly warm. "Good morning, handsome," Natasha said. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous." Blake laughed. "But good nervous, you know, like this is really happening." "It is." Her tone shifted slightly. I couldn't quite place it. "After today, everything changes." I frowned beneath the blanket. Everything changes. The words themselves were normal, something any bride might say. But the way she said it, there was something underneath, something that didn't sound like joy. Blake didn't seem to notice. "I can't wait to start our life together. You, me, the whole future." There was a pause, just a beat too long. "Yeah," Natasha said finally. "Our life, finally." Finally. Why did that word sound so wrong? I pressed my hand against my chest, trying to slow my breathing. "You're overthinking this, Margot. You're hiding in a car because Frederick told you to, and now you're reading into every word like some paranoid." "Where's your mom?" Natasha asked, her voice casual but curious. Blake answered easily. "She's coming separately. She wanted some time alone to process, I think. You know how moms get emotional." My throat tightened. "Good," Natasha said, then softer almost to herself. "That's good. Good. Why would it be good that I wasn't there?" Blake's phone buzzed again, a different sound this time. An incoming call trying to break through. "Hang on, babe," Blake said. "Someone's trying to call me." "Who?" Natasha's voice sharpened. "I don't know. Unknown number." Blake dismissed it. "Probably a spam call. Anyway, where were we?" They kept talking something about the reception, the flowers, whether Blake remembered to pick up his boutonniere. Normal wedding day chatter, but I barely heard it, because Blake's phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. This time, Blake's voice changed, just slightly. "That's weird. Same number." "Ignore it," Natasha said quickly, too quickly. "It's your wedding day. You don't have time for telemarketers." "Yeah, you're right," but Blake sounded uncertain. They said their goodbyes. "I love you. See you at the altar," and Blake hung up. Silence filled the car for maybe 30 seconds. Then the phone rang again. Not a buzz this time, a full loud ring. For the love of... Blake grabbed the phone. I heard him check the screen. Same number, third time. "What the hell?" Frederick's voice came calm from the driver's seat. "You want me to pull over, sir?" "No, I'll just..." Blake answered, his voice clipped. "Hello?" I couldn't hear the other person, but I heard Blake's response. "I told you not to call this number." His voice dropped low, not angry, but scared. Actually scared. "I told you I'd handle it. Stop calling me." He hung up fast. The car felt suddenly smaller, tighter. "Everything all right, Mr. Blake?" Frederick asked, his tone perfectly neutral. Blake forced a laugh, but it came out hollow. Yeah, just wedding stress. You know how it is." "Of course, sir." But I could hear it, the tremor underneath Blake's words, the way his breathing had quickened, the way he shifted in his seat like he couldn't get comfortable. My son was scared, and he was lying. To Frederick, to himself. Maybe even to me if I'd been sitting beside him instead of hiding like a fugitive beneath a blanket. "Who was that?" I wanted to scream. "Who's calling you?" "What aren't you telling me?" But I stayed silent, frozen, listening. Frederick's voice came again, gentle. "You sure you're all right, sir?" "I'm fine, Fred." Blake's voice cracked on the word fine. "Just, let's get to the church. I need to marry Natasha. Everything will be fine once I marry her." Once I marry her. Like marriage was a finish line. A solution. A way to make something stop. My chest felt like someone had wrapped a band around it and pulled tight. "What are you running from, Blake? And why do you think marrying Natasha will save you?" The car kept moving, and I kept listening. The car slowed, then turned. I felt it, the shift in direction, the pull to the left when we should have been going straight. Even hidden beneath the blanket, I'd memorized the route to the cathedral. My husband's funeral had been held there. Blake's baptism. Every major moment of our family's life had happened in that building. This wasn't the way. Fred, Blake's voice carried uncertainty. "Where are we going?" "Slight detour, sir," Frederick answered smoothly. Blake's phone chimed a text message alert. "Oh." Blake's tone shifted, relief mixed with concern. "It's Natasha. She says, hang on." I heard him reading aloud the way he always did when he was stressed. "Emergency at friend's house. Need you to pick me up before church." He paused. "She sent an address." "Everything all right?" Frederick asked. "I don't know. She says it's urgent." Blake's voice tightened. "Fred, can we make a quick stop? I need to get Natasha." "Of course, sir." Frederick's response came too easily, too prepared. He knew. Frederick knew this would happen. The car turned again. The smooth hum of highway pavement became the rougher texture of neighborhood streets. I felt every bump, every pothole. "This is it." Blake sounded confused. "This neighborhood is... Natasha's friends usually live in..." He trailed off. I knew what he meant. Natasha's circle, or the circle she'd shown us, lived in places like ours. Gated communities. Tree-lined streets with names like Oakmont Drive and Willow Creek Lane. This wasn't that. The car stopped. "I'll be right back," Blake said. "She told me to wait inside in the living room." The door opened, closed, footsteps on pavement growing fainter. Then Frederick's voice low and urgent. "Mrs. Hayes, come out now." I pushed the blanket off. Light flooded in morning sun, almost blinding after so long in darkness. I blinked hard, my eyes adjusting. Frederick stood at the open door, hand extended to help me out. I took it. My legs had gone stiff from staying curled up. My dress was wrinkled beyond repair. I didn't care. "Frederick," I hissed, keeping my voice low. "What is this? Where are we?" He didn't answer, just pointed. I followed his gesture to a small house, single-story, painted pale yellow, maybe 30 years old. The lawn needed mowing. A child's bike lay on its side near the garage. And there, at the end of the driveway, a mailbox. Black letters on white, the Collins family. I stared at it, read it again. Collins. Collins, I whispered. Natasha's last name is Quinn. Frederick's expression stayed grim. "Look at the house, Mrs. Hayes." I did. Blake stood at the front door, the main entrance facing the street. He knocked. The door opened. Natasha appeared dressed casually in jeans and a sweater. Her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Nothing like the polished, perfect woman who'd been having dinner at our house just days ago. She smiled at Blake, bright, warm. "Hey," I heard her say, though I couldn't make out the words clearly from this distance. She gestured inside. Blake stepped in. "Wait here, babe." Natasha's voice carried slightly. "I just need to grab my things from upstairs." The door closed. I turned to Frederick, my pulse hammering in my throat. "What's going on? Who lives here?" Frederick's jaw tightened. "Not who lives here, Mrs. Hayes. Who Natasha comes here to see." "What are you talking about?" He pointed again, not to the front door this time. To the side of the house. A smaller door, a side entrance. The kind that led to a mudroom or kitchen. Ordinary. Easy to miss if you weren't looking for it. "Watch that door." Frederick said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not the front, the side." "Why, what am I—" "Please." His hand gripped my arm gently but firmly. "Just watch. She doesn't know we're here. She doesn't know you're about to see who she really is." My breath caught. The Collins family. A house Blake had never been to. A side door I was supposed to watch. And Frederick's face, that look of barely controlled urgency, the same look he'd had when he told me to hide in the car. What am I about to see? "Frederick." I whispered, my voice shaking. "What's through that side door?" He didn't answer. He just watched the house, waiting. And so I did the same. 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. I crouched behind Frederick's sedan, my knees pressed against the cold concrete, my heart hammering. The modest neighborhood was quiet at this hour, a few birds chirping the distant hum of traffic. Nothing about this street matched the world Blake and I inhabited. Nothing about this moment made sense. Frederick had positioned me here with a single instruction: watch that side door. At exactly 8 o'clock it opened. Before I reveal what I saw, comment, "Show me right now. I need to know you're ready for this." Also, please note, this narrative blends real emotions with some fictionalized moments for dramatic purposes. If you're not comfortable with that, feel free to exit now. But if you want the whole truth about what I discovered, keep listening. Natasha stepped out, moving with quick efficiency. No grace, no pretense. She wore jeans and a casual blouse, her hair pulled back. This wasn't the radiant bride-to-be who'd charmed our family. This was someone else entirely. Mommy. A little girl burst through the doorway, blonde curls bouncing. Maybe 5 years old. She threw her arms around Natasha's legs. "Do you have to go?" My breath stopped. "Mommy." Natasha knelt down, her voice softening. "Just for today, sweetheart. Then everything will be different. We need to talk about Randall." A man appeared, late 30s, worn jeans, exhausted eyes. Brett Collins, according to the mailbox. He looked at Natasha with desperate resignation. He called again. "If we don't pay him by Monday—" "Not now." Natasha cut him off sharp. "Blake is inside, in the front room." Brett's face crumpled. "You're really doing this, marrying him?" He shook his head. "He seems like a good man. He doesn't deserve—" "His goodness won't pay Randall." Natasha's words were ice. "His family's money will. The Hayes estate, the hotels, the accounts, that's what keeps our daughter safe." She stepped closer. 1 year of marriage, a clean divorce, and we're free. Randall gets paid and we disappear. I pressed my fist against my mouth. His family's money, Bernard's legacy, Blake's inheritance, everything my husband had built. She wanted to steal it all. Brett stared at the ground. "I don't like this." "You don't have to like it." Natasha pulled him close and kissed him. Not the polite gesture she gave Blake in public, but something real. Years together. Shared history. A family. "You just have to trust me. Daddy." The little girl tugged his shirt. "Can we have pancakes?" "Sure, baby." Brett's voice broke. "Go inside. I'll be right there." As the child skipped away, something shattered inside my chest. That innocent girl had no idea her mother was about to destroy another family to save their own. "Natasha." Blake's voice called from deep inside the house. "You ready? We should get to the church." I watched Natasha transform. The hard edges melted away. The calculating gleam disappeared. Suddenly, she was the gentle fiancée again, the woman who'd held Blake through his grief, who'd promised him a future. The mask fit perfectly. She slipped back through the side door without a word to Brett. 30 seconds later, the front door opened. Natasha emerged with Blake at her side, glowing and radiant. Blake wrapped his arm around her waist, completely unaware that she'd just kissed another man, just outlined his financial ruin. All set. Natasha's voice rang out cheerful. "Sorry for the delay, my friend's cat escaped, but we found him." She pulled Blake toward a silver sedan parked in the driveway. "Let's take my car, baby. I want to drive us to the church together. Just you and me before everything changes." Blake's face softened. "Yeah, that's really sweet." He glanced toward the street where Frederick waited. "I'll text Frederick to meet us there." "Perfect." Natasha kissed his cheek. "Let's go get married." Within moments, her car pulled away and I watched it disappear around the corner, taking my son toward what should have been the happiest day of his life. Instead, he was driving into a trap. I stepped out from behind the sedan, my legs shaking, but my resolve absolute. Frederick appeared beside me, his expression grim. "Her car," I said quietly. She drove them in her car. "She's been using it to move between both lives." Frederick replied, no admiration in his tone. Mr. Blake never questioned why she insisted on driving herself to certain places. He checked his watch. 20 minutes to the church. If you're going to talk to Mr. Collins, do it now." I walked to the front door, each step heavier than the last, and knocked. The knock echoed louder than I expected. I stood on the front porch, heart racing but hands steady. Morning sun felt too bright for what I was about to do. Inside, footsteps approached. The door opened. The man looked exactly like I'd seen moments ago, late 30s, exhausted eyes, world-weary, Brett Collins. He studied me with confusion and growing wariness. "Can I help you?" "My name is Margot Hayes." I kept my voice steady. "I believe you know my son Blake." Color drained from his face instantly. His hand gripped the doorframe. I don't." I held up my phone, the engagement photo Blake had sent 2 months ago. Blake and Natasha smiling. Then the formal portrait from their engagement party. Brett staggered backward. "Oh God, she's really doing it!" I stepped forward. He didn't stop me. The small living room was modest but clean, worn furniture toys scattered on carpet. In the corner, a little girl with blonde curls sat playing with a dollhouse, humming softly. Zoe, the innocent child caught in all this. Doing what? I faced Brett, directly channeling Bernard's strength. "Always face the truth directly, Margot. Tell me everything, right now." Brett glanced at his daughter. She hadn't looked up, then back to me, his eyes hollow with defeat and fear. "She's my wife," his voice cracked. "Legally. We've been married for 4 years." The words hit hard, even though I'd known. Hearing it confirmed 4 years made it real. Blake had only known her for 2. And today, I said quietly, voice trembling despite control, "She's marrying my son." Brett nodded miserably. "She said marrying into your family would solve everything." "Solve what?" "The debts, the threats, everything." The story spilled out. They'd gotten into debt, medical bills from Zoe's premature birth, then bad investments. A man named Randall Turner had loaned them money when banks wouldn't. But Randall wasn't a banker. He was something worse. "She researched your family," Brett said, not meeting my eyes. "Found out about the hotels, the real estate, the investments. She saw an opportunity. She spent months planning this, creating a new identity as Natasha Quinn, her maiden name plus her grandmother's. Getting close to Blake at that charity event wasn't an accident." I thought back to that night 2 years ago, the hospital fundraiser. Blake had been so excited about the beautiful woman who shared his passion for nonprofit work. I'd been happy for him. He'd been lonely since Bernard died. All a lie from the beginning. "Your son seems like a good man," Brett continued, guilt thick in his voice. "He doesn't deserve this." But Natasha said if she could marry him, get access to the Hayes accounts, we could pay off Randall and disappear. Start over somewhere safe. Safe from what? Brett looked up, fear genuine. "If she doesn't pay Randall soon," he said he'd take Zoe. The room tilted. "Take Zoe. After your son's wedding, we'd have access to the money. Joint accounts, insurance policies, all of it. Natasha said she'd transfer what we needed within a week, then stage a divorce in months." His voice dropped to whisper, "If we don't pay Randall by tonight." He couldn't finish, just looked at his daughter, still playing innocently, singing about princesses and castles. A 5-year-old who had no idea her mother was destroying another family to save her own. A little girl whose life had become a bargaining chip. I stood frozen, mind racing. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore, not just about protecting Blake from heartbreak or financial loss. A child's life was at stake. A desperate father dragged into this nightmare, and somewhere out there, a dangerous man expecting his money tonight. Bernard's voice echoed. "The right thing is rarely the easy thing, Margot." I looked at Brett Collins, this broken, desperate man, then at little Zoe humming her princess song. And I made my decision. We didn't have time for tears, less than 3 hours until the ceremony. Bernard had taught me something that guided me through building our business after his death. Protect family first. Deal with emotions later. "Do you have proof?" I asked, voice sharp and businesslike. "Any documentation?" Brett's head snapped up. "Yes, I kept everything." He disappeared into the bedroom. Zoe continued playing in the corner, oblivious. 30 seconds later, Brett returned carrying a worn manila folder. He spread the contents across the coffee table. First, the marriage certificate. Official, legal, undeniable, Brett Collins and Natasha Quinn Collins married 4 years ago. The state seal stared up at me. Then photographs. Family pictures spanning years, hospital with newborn Zoe, Christmas mornings, birthday parties, beach vacations. A complete life documented. A real marriage. A real family. Everything Blake thought he was getting. Text messages came next, printed and highlighted. Natasha to an unknown number. The Hayes family is worth millions. Hotels, real estate investment portfolios. Once I'm in, we can access everything. Another, Blake is perfect, grieving, lonely, desperate for connection. He won't see it coming. My stomach turned. Bank statements showed her research searches for Hayes Properties Atlanta, Hayes Hotel Group net worth, Hayes family assets. She'd been hunting us. The final text made my blood run cold. Once I marry into it, we'll be protected. Randall can't touch us. 1 year, then divorce, and we disappear with enough to start over. This is fraud, I said quietly, hands trembling. Identity theft, bigamy, enough to put her in prison. Footsteps on the porch. Frederick appeared. I'd texted him minutes ago. Mrs. Hayes, we need to go, he said urgently. The church is expecting us. I turned to Brett. Come to the church. Bring Zoe. Bring these documents. Brett's face went white. Randall will be watching. If I show up and ruin this... He glanced at Zoe. He said he'd take her. I'll arrange security, I said firmly. You and Zoe will be safe, but my son needs to know the truth before he says I do. We expose her at the church, publicly, with evidence. Frederick stepped forward. Mr. Collins, I can coordinate with someone who handles situations like this, discreetly. Your daughter will be protected. You can do that. Brett's voice cracked with hope. I've been protecting the Hayes family for 15 years, Frederick replied. I won't let harm come to an innocent child. Brett looked at Zoe, still humming, building her dollhouse kingdom, then back to me. Guilt transformed into determination. For Zoe, he said quietly, and for Blake. He deserves the truth. I nodded. Then we give it to him. Frederick's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, expression tightening. Our contact at the church. He turned the phone toward me. The message read, guests arriving. Bride in prep room getting ready. Groom asking where you are. Where is everyone? We need to leave now, Mrs. Hayes, Frederick said. I looked at Brett steadily. Be at the church before 11. Park in the back lot. Stay there with Zoe until I signal you. Don't let Natasha see you. Brett nodded, clutching the folder. I'll be there. And Mr. Collins, thank you for doing the right thing. As Frederick and I hurried to the car, my mind raced ahead. 3 elements needed to converge Blake at the altar. Natasha playing bride and Brett walking through those doors with proof. The timing had to be perfect. Frederick held the car door open. The church is 18 minutes away. We're cutting it close. Then drive fast, I said. As we pulled away, I glanced back. Brett stood on the porch, folder pressed against his chest, watching us leave. A desperate father trying to make things right. We were running out of time. 20 minutes later, I walked into my own home like nothing had happened. Because Blake couldn't know. Not yet. The moment I stepped through the door, I heard their voices, Blake and Tyler, in the living room, laughing about something. Normal. Happy. The way a groom and his best man should sound on a wedding day. My heart was breaking, but my face remained calm. Mom. Blake's voice called out, relieved and worried at once. Where have you been? You were gone so long. Are you okay? I forced a bright smile, the kind Bernard always said could light up a room. Just getting some fresh air, sweetheart. Needed to clear my head. Big day, you know. Blake stood in front of the fireplace, fumbling with his tie, looking every bit the nervous groom. Tyler sat on the couch, already dressed in his groomsman's suit, grinning. I get it, Blake said, laughing anxiously. I'm freaking out over here. Tyler laughed. Dude, you're sweating like you're running a marathon. Relax. Blake turned to me, his hands still struggling with the tie. His eyes, Bernard's eyes, searched mine. Mom, do you think Natasha's happy? Really happy with me? My heart shattered, but I kept my voice steady. Sweetheart, what matters is whether you're happy. Blake's face softened into something so genuine it hurt to witness. I am. She's everything I ever wanted. Smart, beautiful, kind. He paused, emotion catching in his throat. After Dad died, I thought I'd never feel whole again, but Natasha makes me feel like I can breathe. I had to look away, had to blink back tears. My eyes landed on Bernard's photograph on the mantel, his warm smile the way he'd looked at our wedding 30 years ago. I wish you were here, Bernard. You'd know exactly what to say to him. Tyler, oblivious to my internal collapse, clapped Blake on the shoulder. Man, you're glowing like a Christmas tree. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one, Blake said quietly. Then to me, Dad would have been happy for me, right? My voice came out rougher than intended. Your father would be so proud of you, son. So proud. Tyler's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Hey, we need to head out soon. Church in an hour. Right. Blake straightened, trying to compose himself. Mom, do I look okay? I walked over, adjusted his tie with trembling fingers, the same way Bernard used to before important meetings. You look perfect, sweetheart. Thanks, Mom. He kissed my forehead. For everything. For being strong after Dad. For accepting Natasha. For being you. I couldn't speak, just nodded. I need to go get ready, I managed. You two finish up. I walked to my bedroom, closed the door, and leaned against it. For 10 seconds, I let myself feel it, the weight of what I was about to do. The knowledge that in less than 3 hours, I would walk into that church and destroy my son's happiness to save him from something worse. I sat on the bed, the manila folder Brett had given me still in my purse. Evidence of fraud, betrayal, calculated deception. Everything Blake didn't know. Everything he needed to know. On my nightstand sat another photograph of Bernard, this one from Blake's high school graduation. Bernard's hand on Blake's shoulder, both of them laughing, father and son. Give me strength, I thought, touching the frame. I have to break our son's heart to save it. My phone buzzed. Frederick's message. Mr. Collins is en route to the church. I've contacted someone who can provide security support. Are you ready? I typed back, as ready as I'll ever be. I stood, walked to the full-length mirror in my bedroom. The woman staring back looked composed, elegant, like someone going to celebrate her son's wedding, not someone about to destroy it. I smoothed my dress, picked up my purse, the folder hidden inside, and took one deep breath. It was time. The drive to the cathedral felt like racing straight into a storm I'd summoned myself. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. I'd told Blake and Tyler to go ahead with Frederick, that I needed a moment alone. They hadn't questioned it. Why would they? I was the composed widow, the strong mother, always in control. What kind of mother drives to her son's wedding planning to destroy it? I whispered to the empty car. The answer came immediately. The kind who won't let him marry a lie. I passed familiar streets, the corner where Bernard proposed the park, where Blake learned to ride his bike, the restaurant, where we celebrated his graduation. Every memory a reminder of what I was protecting. Bernard, if you can hear me, tell me I'm doing the right thing. My mind drifted backward, pulled by regret. I should have seen it from the beginning. The memory pulled me back to that afternoon 2 years ago when sunlight had streamed through my office windows. Bernard had been gone only 1 year, and I was still learning to run the business alone. Blake had burst through the door, practically glowing. Mom, I want you to meet someone. He looked happier than I'd seen him since the funeral. This is Natasha Quinn. He gestured with unmistakable pride. Natasha, my mother, Margot Hayes. She was beautiful, polished, poised, with a smile that seemed too perfect. Everything about her whispered, I belong here. Mrs. Hayes, what an honor. Her voice was warm. Blake talks about you constantly. Something felt rehearsed in that greeting, but I pushed the thought away. We talked. Natasha said all the right things about grief healing, how much Blake meant to her, but her eyes kept wandering. To the artwork, to the city view, to the expensive furnishings. I grew up with very little, she'd said. Seeing what you've built here, it's inspiring. Then came the questions, too specific. How do you manage such a large portfolio? Do you have business partners? How is succession planning structured? My instincts whispered something's wrong, but Blake was beaming, holding her hand like she was his lifeline back to the living. Don't be paranoid, I told myself. Don't become that mother-in-law. Bernard's voice echoed in memory. Look at people's eyes, Margot. Don't listen to their words. I'd looked at Natasha's eyes that day. They'd been calculating, measuring the value of everything in that room. But I'd ignored it. For Blake's happiness, I'd ignored it. A car horn snapped me back to the present. I blinked hard, gripping the steering wheel tighter. 2 years later, and I was driving to stop the wedding I'd allowed to happen. The cathedral rose ahead, magnificent Gothic architecture against blue sky. Cars packed the lot, guests in formal attire streaming toward the entrance. Everything beautiful, everything perfect, everything a lie. I spotted Blake's car, watched him step out, adjusting his jacket, waving at guests. He looked so much like Bernard on our wedding day. Nervous, excited, hopeful. My phone buzzed. Frederick's text, Mr. Collins in position, back corner, Zoe with him, security aware. You, I typed, arriving now. I parked, sat in silence, forcing myself to breathe. I ignored my instincts once, never again. Through the windshield, I watched Blake greeting guests, shaking hands, laughing. He looked radiant, alive. He looks just like Bernard, I whispered. But I won't fail him the way I almost did by staying silent. I stepped out, my heels clicked on pavement. Guests turned, smiled, waved. Beautiful day for a wedding, Mrs. Hayes, someone called. I smiled back, my face a perfect mask. They had no idea that in less than an hour I would shatter everything. The cathedral was magnificent. Soaring vaulted ceilings, polished wooden pews, massive pipe organ gleaming in afternoon light. Flowers everywhere, white roses and lilies cascading down aisles, filling the air with perfume. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting jeweled patterns across marble floors. Everything perfect, exactly as Blake and Natasha had planned. Every guest dressed impeccably. The cathedral hummed with elegant conversation and anticipation. Everyone who mattered was here. I stepped inside, immediately surrounded by greetings. Business partners, family, friends, people Bernard and I had known for decades, all smiling, celebrating, expecting a beautiful day. Margot, you look stunning. Walter approached Bernard's old business partner, kind eyes crinkling. Bernard would be so happy seeing Blake settled like this. I forced a smile. I hope so, Walter. That, Natasha, is a real gem. He continued warmly. Smart, gracious, devoted to Blake. You raised a good man who found a good woman. My stomach twisted, but I kept smiling. Thank you, Walter. He patted my shoulder and moved toward his seat. I watched him go, wondering how many people in this room I was about to disappoint. Mrs. Hayes. Tyler rushed over, grinning. Blake's backstage, freaking out a little. Normal groom stuff. You want to see him? Yes, please. Tyler led me behind the altar to a small preparation room. Blake stood before a mirror, fumbling with his tie, anxiety radiating from him. Mom, thank God. Relief flooded his face. I'm losing my mind here. My heart shattered. That's normal, sweetheart. Is it? He laughed nervously. I just want everything perfect for her, for us. I stepped closer, gently moving his hands aside and fixing his tie the same way I'd done before his prom, his graduation, every important moment. Blake, I need you to know something. He looked at me, eyes so much like Bernard's. What? I chose words carefully. No matter what happens today, I love you, always, and everything I do is to protect you. Blake's brow furrowed, confused. What could happen, Mom? Everything's perfect. She's perfect. I nearly collapsed, but held firm. I know, son. He pulled me into a hug. Thank you for accepting her, for supporting us, for giving us your blessing. It means everything. Having you here happy for us, it makes this complete. Over his shoulder, my eyes filled with tears. I love you so much, Blake. 10 minutes, man, Tyler called from the doorway. Guests are seated. Time to go. I pulled back, straightened Blake's collar. You look handsome, just like your father. Thanks, Mom. He smiled that beautiful, innocent smile about to be destroyed. I left the room, composure hanging by a thread. As I walked down the corridor, I passed the bridal preparation room. The door was slightly ajar. Natasha's voice on the phone. Her tone completely different, cold, calculated, sharp. After this, we're done. We'll be fine. He won't know anything until it's too late. My blood ran cold. I stepped back silently before she could see me. That voice wasn't the woman who'd charmed our family. That was someone executing a plan, someone who'd never loved my son. I walked away quickly, hands trembling but mind clear. In 10 minutes, the ceremony would begin. In 15 minutes, I would end it. The organ music swelled, filling the cathedral. Every head turned toward the back. The The ceremony was beginning. Guests rose to their feet. The traditional processional started, bridesmaids gliding down the aisle in elegant dresses, carrying small bouquets, smiling at the crowd. I sat in the front row, the exact spot where I'd sat at my own wedding to Bernard 30 years ago. My hands were folded calmly in my lap, but my heart pounded so hard I was certain everyone could hear it. Blake stood at the altar with Tyler beside him, Reverend Gibson positioned between them. My son's face showed everything: nervous anticipation, barely contained joy, eyes glistening with emotion as he kept glancing toward the back of the cathedral. The music shifted. The bridal march began. The doors at the back opened wider. Natasha appeared. She was stunning. A vision in white, the dress fitted perfectly, flowing elegantly behind her veil, cascading down her back, bouquet of white roses clutched in her hands. She looked every bit the perfect bride. Whispers rippled through the guests. "She's beautiful. What a gorgeous bride." They looked so perfect together. Natasha began her walk down the aisle, each step slow and measured, perfectly timed to the music. Her smile was radiant, graceful, everything a bride should be. Blake's face transformed completely. Pure joy, tears streaming down his cheeks. He pressed his hand to his chest like his heart might burst. I watched her approach, thinking, she looks like an angel, but I know better. Natasha passed each row, nodding graciously at guests, her smile never faltering. She played the role flawlessly. My eyes swept the room. Frederick stood near the side entrance, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. He caught my eye, gave the smallest nod. "Ready?" I scanned the back corner. Brett and Zoe partially hidden behind a column. Zoe whispered something to her father. Brett gently shushed her, his hand protective on her shoulder. "Everything in position." Natasha reached the front, stopped, turned to face Blake. He stepped forward, hand extended, eyes full of love and wonder. She took his hand, stepped up beside him. Reverend Gibson's voice rang out, warm and ceremonial. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Blake Hayes and Natasha Quinn in holy matrimony." The traditional words, the sacred vows about to be spoken. Marriage is a sacred bond. Reverend Gibson continued, built on trust, honesty, and love. Trust, honesty, love. The words felt like mockery. Natasha's smile remained perfect, but I noticed something, her fingers tightening on Blake's hand just for a moment before relaxing again. She knew something was wrong. She just didn't know I knew everything. "Marriage is not to be entered into lightly," the Reverend said, but reverently, deliberately, and in accordance with the purposes for which it was instituted. Blake looked at Natasha like she'd hung the moon. Tyler stood proud beside him. The guests watched with rapt attention, expecting a fairy tale ending. I sat perfectly still in the front row, hands folded calmly on my lap, patient, waiting. The Reverend continued with opening prayers readings from Corinthians about love being patient and kind. Blake and Natasha stood side by side, looking absolutely perfect together. The entire community was watching, expecting, celebrating. Natasha's smile never wavered, but I saw her fingers tighten again, just a flicker on Blake's hand before releasing. I sat motionless, my own hands clasped peacefully in my lap, patient, waiting. Reverend Gibson's voice continued, but I barely heard the words anymore. I was counting down the minutes. Reverend Gibson cleared his throat. His voice rang out across the silent cathedral, solemn and ceremonial. "If anyone here knows any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." The traditional silence followed, the moment every ceremony has but no one ever fills. 3 seconds. 4. 5. Natasha's shoulders relaxed slightly, relief washing over her face. Blake smiled nervously at her, squeezing her hand tighter, his eyes glistening. I stood slowly from the front row. The sound of my movement fabric rustling the pew, creaking, echoed in the profound stillness. Every head turned toward me. I object. My voice was clear, steady, undeniable. Gasps erupted throughout the cathedral like a wave crashing. Shocked whispers exploded instantly. "What? Did she just... Oh my God! The mother of the groom!" Blake spun around, face stricken with confusion and horror. "Mom, what are you doing?" Tyler's mouth fell open. "Mrs. Hayes." Natasha's composure shattered instantly. Her voice trembled, desperate. "Mrs. Hayes, this isn't appropriate. This isn't the time." Reverend Gibson stood frozen, completely unprepared for this moment, despite conducting hundreds of weddings. "Mrs. Hayes, this is most unusual. I mean, if you have concerns, perhaps we should discuss this privately." I walked toward the altar, each step deliberate and measured. My heels clicked against marble. The whispers grew louder around me, guests turning to each other, standing to see better, phones being discreetly pulled out. "This wedding cannot proceed." My voice carried through the entire cathedral, reaching every corner. "I'm sorry to everyone gathered here, but it cannot." Blake stepped toward me, his face a mixture of betrayal and desperate confusion. "Mom, what are you saying? Have you lost your mind? This is my wedding day." I stopped at the altar steps just below where he and Natasha stood. My eyes met my son's, those eyes so much like Bernard's, and my heart broke. But I didn't waver. "No, sweetheart, I finally found it." I turned my gaze to Natasha. She stood frozen bouquet, trembling in her hands, the perfect bride facade cracking before everyone's eyes. "This is insane," Natasha said, her voice rising with panic. "You're ruining This is my wedding. Our wedding, Blake. Your mother is—" I cut her off, my voice still calm, still controlled. "Because the woman standing at this altar is already married." The cathedral erupted. Louder gasps, stunned exclamations, chairs scraping as people stood. "What? She's married? To who?" The whispers became a roar. Blake staggered backward like I'd physically struck him. What are you talking about, Mom? That's impossible. We've been together 2 years. She's never—" Tyler caught Blake's arm, steadying him, his own face pale with shock. Natasha's voice turned shrill, desperate. "That's not true. She's lying. She's completely lying. Blake, don't listen to her. Your mother is trying to sabotage us because she never wanted you to move on after your father—" I kept my gaze locked on Natasha, unwavering. "Tell them. Tell everyone here about Brett. Tell them about Zoe." Silence fell like a hammer. Every eye fixed on Natasha. Her face went from white to gray. Her hands started shaking so badly the bouquet trembled visibly. Blake looked between us, his voice breaking. "Who's Brett? Who's Zoe, Mom? What are you talking about?" Natasha's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The mask had finally completely shattered. Walter's voice came from somewhere in the crowd. "Margot, what's going on?" I didn't take my eyes off Natasha. "Brett Collins is her husband. Legal husband. They've been married for 4 years. Zoe is their 5-year-old daughter." The cathedral exploded again, louder this time. Voices overlapping, people standing, the organist, even standing up to see what was happening. Then slowly heads began turning toward the back of the cathedral. Movement caught everyone's attention. And there he was, walking down the center aisle with measured steps, a little girl clutching his hand. The man Natasha called husband, Brett Collins, had entered the building. Brett Collins stepped into the center aisle from the back corner, holding Zoe's small hand in his. Zoe's voice carried in the profound silence, innocent and confused. "Daddy, why is everyone staring at us?" Brett squeezed her hand gently, his voice soft. "It's okay, sweetheart. Just walk with Daddy." They moved down the aisle together, each footstep echoing against marble. The cathedral held its collective breath, hundreds of eyes following their progress. Whispers rippled through the guests like wind through leaves. "Who is that man?" "There's a child? What's happening? Did she say Daddy?" Zoe looked around, eyes wide with wonder at the flowers and decorations. "Daddy, it's so pretty here. Look at all the flowers." Then she saw Natasha standing at the altar in her white dress, veil flowing behind her. Zoe's face lit up with pure, innocent delight. "Mommy, you look like a princess." The cathedral erupted. Louder gasps, shocked exclamations. "Mommy!" She called her Mommy. "Oh my God!" Natasha's voice cracked with panic. "Zoe, no, Brett, what are you doing? You can't—" Blake turned to me, his face a mask of confusion and desperate hope that this was somehow a mistake. "Who is this man? Who is that child, Mom? What's going on?" Brett reached the front of the cathedral, stopping just a few steps from the altar where Blake and Natasha stood. He looked at my son with genuine sympathy, then at Natasha with resignation, then at the shocked congregation. "My name is Brett Collins." His voice trembled but held firm, carrying through the silent cathedral. He looked directly at Natasha. "And Natasha Quinn Collins is my wife." The whispers became a roar. Chairs scraped. People stood to see better. Someone gasped. "No." Someone else said, "This can't be real." Brett continued each word deliberate and clear. "We've been legally married for 4 years. I have our marriage certificate with me. We have a home together on Maple Street. We share a bank account." He gestured toward Zoe with infinite tenderness. "And this is our daughter Zoe. She's 5 years old." Zoe, oblivious to the gravity of the moment, waved cheerfully at the crowd. "Hi everyone, I'm Zoe." Blake staggered backward like he'd been physically struck. No, this can't be." "You're lying. You have to be lying. Mom tell me he's lying." I caught Blake's arm, holding him steady as his whole world crumbled. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. But it's the truth. I saw them together this morning. I spoke with Brett. I have proof." Blake's face went from shock to devastation. He turned to Natasha, voice breaking completely. "Natasha, tell me he's lying, please. Tell me this isn't true. Tell me you love me. Tell me any of this is real." Natasha's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came, only tears streaming down her carefully made-up face, mascara beginning to run. Brett's expression filled with sadness and guilt. "I'm sorry, Blake. I truly am. You seem like a good man. You don't deserve this." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "But she's been planning this for months. She researched your family's wealth. She targeted you deliberately at that fundraiser. We owe money to dangerous people. She said marrying into your family would solve everything that she could access, your accounts, pay off our debts, and we could disappear." Tyler stepped forward, his usual humor completely gone. "Blake, man, I don't understand what's—" Blake held up a hand, silencing him. His eyes never left Natasha. "Say something. Anything. Tell me this isn't real. Tell me you actually love me." The silence stretched. 10 seconds. 20. Reverend Gibson finally found his voice shaken. I cannot continue this ceremony. I've never... Walter rose from his seat, his voice carrying concern. "Margot, is all of this true?" I kept my hand firm on Blake's arm, anchoring him. "Every single word." Blake's knees buckled. I caught him, Tyler, rushing to support his other side. My son stared at the woman he'd planned to build a life with, waiting desperately, heartbreakingly, hoping for a denial that would never come. "Natasha," Blake whispered, one final time, voice barely audible. "Please." Natasha opened her mouth, but this time no lies emerged. Only silence. And in that silence lay her complete, devastating confession. Then she collapsed, sinking to her knees at the altar. The beautiful bouquet fell from her hands, white roses scattering across the marble steps. Sobs racked her body, not from remorse or regret, but from the realization that her carefully constructed plan had shattered completely. And with it, my son's heart broke into 1,000 pieces. I stepped closer, my voice firm but measured, not cruel. "You owe him an explanation. You owe all of us. Why?" Natasha's sobs racked her body, her voice breaking between gasps. I didn't have any other choice. You have to understand." My voice stayed cold, cutting through her excuses. "There's always a choice, Natasha, always." Blake's voice came out raw, barely above a whisper, each word painful. "Why me, out of everyone in this city? Why did you choose me? Why did you do this to me?" Natasha looked up at Blake, mascara streaking down her face in dark rivers, her carefully applied makeup destroyed. "We had debts. Dangerous debts to dangerous people." Brett spoke quietly from the side. Zoe now lifted into his arms, her small face pressed against his shoulder to shield her from the adult drama unfolding. "A man named Randall Turner. He loaned us money when we had nowhere else to turn. Medical bills from Zoe's birth, then bad investments trying to dig ourselves out. But Randall, he's not a banker. He's something much worse. threatened how I press needing everything out in the open. Brett's arms tightened around Zoe protectively, his voice dropping to barely audible. He said if we didn't pay him back with interest by the end of this year, he'd take Zoe, sell her. We'd never see her again. Shocked gasps rippled through the assembled guests. Horrified whispers followed, "Oh my God, that's terrible. Those poor people. How desperate they must have been." Natasha's voice rose desperate and pleading. "I was trying to protect her. Don't you see, I was trying to save my daughter. What kind of mother would I be if I didn't do everything possible to keep her safe?" I held firm, unmoved. "By destroying my family to save yours." Natasha's sobs grew louder, her words tumbling out frantically. I researched your family for months. The hotels, the real estate holdings, the investment portfolios. I thought if I married into your family, we'd have access to money. Real money, protection. Randall couldn't touch us if we had the Hayes name behind us. We could pay him off completely and disappear. Start over somewhere safe where he'd never find us. Blake stepped closer, his entire body trembling with emotion. "So you used me. You hunted me down at that fundraiser. You researched my dead father. You learned what I cared about so you could pretend to care about the same things. You manipulated me. You made me fall in love with what A character you created a lie. I'm sorry." Natasha looked up at him, and for the first time I saw what might have been genuine anguish on her face. "Blake, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you like this. You're a good man. You deserve so much better than—" My voice cut through her apology like a blade. "Sorry doesn't erase 4 years of systematic lies. Sorry doesn't undo bigamy and fraud." Blake stopped directly in front of Natasha, looking down at her kneeling form, his voice barely holding together. "Did you ever love me even a little bit? Even for a moment? Or was every kiss, every word, every promise, every time you said, 'I love you,' all of it just an act?" The cathedral fell completely silent. Every person held their breath, waiting. Natasha looked up at Blake, mouth opening as if to speak. But no answer came. Seconds ticked by, 5, 10, 15. Blake's voice cracked completely. "Answer me, please. I need to know if any of it was real." Natasha looked down at her hands, unable to meet his eyes, tears falling onto the white marble floor. That silence was the most brutal answer of all. Blake turned away sharply, his hand covering his face, shoulders shaking. Tyler immediately stepped forward, placing both hands on Blake's shoulders in silent support. I addressed Natasha one final time. "Your desperation doesn't justify what you did. You didn't just deceive one person. You deceived an entire community. You committed fraud. You planned to steal from our family, and you destroyed my son's ability to trust in the process." Walter's voice came from somewhere in the crowd. "Margot, should we notify the authorities?" "Already done," I replied calmly. Blake's shoulders continued to shake. I moved toward him, wanting to hold my son to somehow absorb his pain. But before I could reach him, a calm, authoritative voice echoed from the cathedral entrance. "Mrs. Hayes, we're here as requested." I turned. 2 police officers walked down the center aisle, calm and professional, badges visible. Frederick had made one more call I hadn't known about. The male officer spoke first. "We're looking for Natasha Quinn." Natasha's panic was immediate. "No, please." The female officer approached gently but firmly. "Ma'am, I need you to stand up." Natasha struggled to her feet, legs trembling beneath her ruined dress. The male officer's tone remained measured. "Natasha Quinn, you're under arrest for marriage fraud, bigamy, and attempted identity theft. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you." The female officer guided Natasha's hands behind her back, securing handcuffs. The metallic click echoed in the silent cathedral. Zoe's frightened voice cut through. "Mommy, where are they taking Mommy?" Brett lifted Zoe higher, turning her face away. "It's okay, sweetheart. Mommy has to go talk to some people." Blake watched in silence, frozen. Tyler stayed close beside him. The male officer approached me. "Mrs. Hayes, you contacted us. Frederick Palmer, our driver." I gestured toward Frederick near the entrance. Frederick nodded confirmation. "We'll need statements from you, Mr. Collins, and anyone with relevant information," the officer said. Brett, holding Zoe, protectively nodded. "Of course. I have documents, marriage certificate, photos, bank records, text messages, everything." The female officer continued with Natasha. "Do you understand these rights?" Natasha nodded through tears. I addressed the male officer quietly. "There's also a man named Randall Turner. He's been threatening Mr. Collins and his daughter." The officer nodded. "Already handled. We have Mr. Turner in custody outside. He attempted to enter the premises. He's being held on charges of harassment and illegal threats." Brett's relief was profound. "Zoe's safe." "Yes, sir. You and your daughter are completely safe." Natasha was led down the aisle, white dress trailing behind her handcuffs, reflecting stained glass light. She looked back at Blake one final time, desperate. Blake stared ahead, jaw clenched. Natasha whispered, voice breaking, "Blake, please, Blake turned his head, looked directly at her. His voice came out flat dead. "Don't." That single word carried more finality than anything else said. The officers guided Natasha through the doors. They closed with a heavy thud. Silence fell over hundreds of guests. Not a whisper, not a movement. Blake stood at the altar in his wedding suit, staring at nothing. Walter rose slowly. "Margot, what happens now?" I looked at my son, frozen where he was supposed to have been married. "Now," I said quietly, "we help him heal." But as I looked at Blake's hollow expression, I realized the hardest part hadn't ended. It was only beginning. The cathedral began to empty. Slowly, quietly, guests left, some whispering, some silent. But Blake didn't move. He sat in the front pew, still in his wedding suit, head in his hands. A few guests stopped briefly, touching his shoulder, murmuring, "I'm so sorry." Walter paused. "Margot, if you need anything." I nodded gratefully. He left. Tyler approached Blake. "Man, I'll be right outside. Take your time." He glanced at me, nodded, stepped away. I sat beside my son in the same pew where I'd sat at my own wedding. I said nothing at first. Silence stretched between us. Blake's voice came out rough. "How long have you known?" I answered honestly. "Since this morning. Frederick discovered it weeks ago but confirmed everything today." Blake looked up, eyes red. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why wait until I was at the altar?" I held his gaze. "Because you wouldn't have believed me, Blake. If I'd told you yesterday, you'd think I was paranoid, overprotective. You would have defended her." Blake laughed bitterly. "You're right. I would have. I would have chosen her over you." Pause. "God, I'm such a fool." I spoke firmly. "You're not a fool. You wanted to believe in love. That's not weakness. That's courage." Blake's voice filled with tears. "It feels like weakness. I feel like the biggest idiot in the world. She deceived all of us, Blake. She was very good at it. She planned for months. That's what made her dangerous." Blake stared at his hands. Was any of it real? Did she feel anything, or was I just a mark? I chose words carefully. "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe there were moments. Maybe she doesn't even know anymore." Blake's voice cracked. "Dad would have seen through her, wouldn't he?" My chest tightened. "Maybe, maybe not. Your father was brilliant, but love makes everyone vulnerable, even him." Blake's tears fell freely. "I miss him so much, and I thought Natasha filled that hole, but she just made it bigger." I wrapped my arms around my son. "I know, sweetheart, I know." Blake leaned against my shoulder, letting himself be vulnerable for the first time in years. I spoke quietly. "Your father taught me something. He said, protect the ones you love even when it hurts them, because losing them hurts more." Blake whispered, "You saved me. I did what any mother would do." "No." Blake pulled back to look at me. "Most people would have stayed silent. You risked everything, your relationship with me, your reputation. You were willing to have me hate you to save me." "I never risked everything," I corrected gently. "I risked your anger, but I could never risk your future." Silence fell again, Blake processing. "What do I do now?" "Now you heal. You take time. You let people who love you help." Blake nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mom, for being brave enough to do what I couldn't." I kissed his forehead. We sat as afternoon light shifted through stained glass, mother and son in the cathedral, meant to celebrate a beginning, but instead revealed a lie. Finally, Blake stood. "Let's go home, Mom." And we did, together. 3 months later, life looked different, quieter, but somehow stronger. I sat in my office, afternoon sunlight streaming through windows. On my desk sat a photograph, Bernard, me, and Blake, as a little boy, all three of us, laughing at something long forgotten. The door opened. Blake walked in carrying project folders. "Mom, I finished the Miller development proposal. Want to review it?" I studied him carefully. He looked better. Not healed completely, that would take time, but lighter. He slept through the nights now. Sometimes he even smiled. "How are you doing, Blake, really?" He sat down, answering honestly. "Some days are harder than others, but I'm okay. Therapy helps a lot. Dr. Williams says I need to rebuild trust slowly, no rushing into anything." I felt pride swell in my chest. That's very wise. I'm taking time, focusing on work, on family, on myself. He paused. "Dad would be proud of how I'm handling this, right?" "Your father would be incredibly proud." Blake smiled slightly. "I hope so." He gestured to the folders. "Business is doing well. The Miller project should be approved next week. By the way," Blake added, "I officially started calling Frederick Uncle Fred. He actually teared up." I laughed softly. He's earned that title. He earned it himself. Blake's expression shifted. "I heard from the prosecutor. Natasha's sentence came down. And 5 years, fraud, bigamy, identity theft. She'll serve at least 3 with good behavior." I nodded. Justice was served. "I don't hate her," Blake said quietly. I feel sorry for her. She destroyed everything and got nothing." "What about Brett and Zoe?" "Brett sent me a message. He and Zoe are doing much better. You helped with their divorce legal fees. It was the right thing to do. They were innocent in all this." Blake smiled. "Brett said Zoe still asks about the nice lady at the church. She means you. She's a sweet child. None of this was her fault." Blake stood. "I'm heading home. Dinner this weekend." "Always." He hugged me, genuine warm. "Thank you, Mom, for everything." After he left, I sat alone looking at Bernard's photograph again. "We did it, Bernard," I whispered. "Our son is safe." They say a mother's instinct is the greatest gift. I wish I'd trusted mine sooner. But in the end, I did what Bernard always taught me. I protected my family. Blake is healing, slowly, carefully, but genuinely. He's learned to recognize warning signs, to trust his instincts, to ask questions before giving his heart away. The business is thriving. Frederick is officially part of our family now, not just an employee, but an uncle, a protector, a friend. Brett and Zoe are safe. Randall is in prison. The threats are gone. I helped with their legal costs because that's what decent people do when innocent lives get caught in someone else's destruction. And Natasha. She's serving 5 years for fraud and bigamy. I don't wish her ill, but I don't regret what I did. Justice isn't revenge. It's protecting others from harm. Natasha Quinn thought she could build a future on lies. She believed if she could just reach that altar, just say, "I do," everything would work out. But truth doesn't need permission to surface. It only needs someone brave enough to open the door. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And comment below. Have you ever had to make a hard choice to protect someone you love? Tell me your story. I want to hear it. Proverbs 12:22 says, "The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in those who tell the truth." Natasha built her plans on deception, desperation, and manipulation, but truth is never buried forever. And sometimes the hardest act of love is standing up and speaking that truth, even when it breaks your own heart to do it. Trust your instincts, protect those you love, and never be afraid to speak truth even when it shatters everything. Because in the end, one painful moment of truth is always better than a lifetime of suffering from lies. And to you, listening to this story, remember this. I stood at that altar because God gave me the strength to speak truth when silence would have been easier. 3 times I asked him for courage once when Frederick showed me the evidence, once in my car driving to the cathedral, and once more before I stood up and said, "I object." Each time he reminded me protecting those you love is never wrong. Looking back at my own journey, I made mistakes. I ignored my instincts for 2 years because I wanted Blake to be happy. Don't do what I did. Don't wait until your child is standing at the altar to act on what your heart already knows. Trust that God-given intuition. It's there for a reason. These family drama stories teach us that sometimes love means doing the hard thing. These grandma stories aren't just about weddings gone wrong, they're about mothers, grandmothers, anyone who's ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping their loved ones safe. When you face that choice, and you will face it, remember one moment of painful truth beats a lifetime of comfortable lies. Family drama stories like mine happen every day. Grandma stories like this one are real, and the courage to speak up that comes from above. If this story moved, you hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, maybe a friend facing their own family drama, maybe a grandmother wondering if she should speak up. Leave a comment below. Have you ever had to make a hard choice to protect your family? Your grandma stories matter too. I want to hear them. Thank you for staying with me until the end. A note to our listeners. The stories that follow contain some fictional elements created for educational purposes. If this content isn't for you, please feel free to explore other videos that better suit your preferences. God bless you all.